Basic easy stuff. All right, chapter 3, the cellular level. Cellular level. So we just did the chemistry part, right? So that's my first level. Now I'm doing cells. That's my second level. And from cells, we're going to do tissues. We're going to sort of work from the bottom and work our way up. So what do we know about the cell? Smallest living unit in the human body. That's where everything takes place. Metabolism takes place there. We make hormones there. We assemble proteins there. We make amino acids. We do all sorts of crazy stuff, right? At the cellular level. That's where everything takes place. Okay, so here's our typical cell. Up in lab, we're going to have this as well. I showed you the picture on page 39 in your lab manual. You had to go through and identify, like, I don't know, 14 different structures within the cell. We have the nucleus, here's my little mitochondria. We have lysosomes, peroxisomes, rough and smooth, endoplasmic reticulum, and all that crazy stuff. So in lecture, you get to learn about what those things do. In lab, we have to be able to identify them by name from the picture. So I think it's a very similar picture to what we have here. Good? Okay. So another crazy picture of a cell. Some of you like do that up for us? I don't know if you did it, but maybe like do a little acid before you come to class and you want to look at it and move back and forth. Maybe go with some mushrooms, maybe. Alrighty. So what do you know about cells? Well, from chapter 1, we said we have like 200 different types of cells. Skin cells, and hair cells, and liver cells, and sperm cells, and red blood cells, white blood cells. You name it, we have like a ton of different cells that are out there. So, it says not all cells look alike, but you probably already know that. Nor do they perform identical functions. You probably know that because a sperm cell does something totally different than a red blood cell, right? So, not the same thing. And, since we have about 100 trillion cells in the human body, maybe, who knows, and about 200 different types of those, vary in size and shape, again, related to their function. So, over here we can see a smooth muscle cell. I'll do that for you today up in lab. So that's that spindle-shaped cell. Know that one? You feel about that? See there? Yeah, so for my little smooth muscle tissue, we have a sperm cell way over there on that side. A nerve cell through here. My cell bodies and dendrites and such there. Red blood cell and an epithelial cell, which one is fit? Squamous, cuboidal, or columnar? Columnar. It's a column-shaped cell, right? Taller than it is wide. So anyway, so they vary in shape and size.
With hair on it.
Easy stuff. Has hair. Has cilia, right? Good job. All right, here's the parts of a typical cell, which you already know this, I'm pretty sure. So you guys have had some sort of biology at some point in your life, I'm sure. So, typical parts. We have, here's my cell. Here's my nucleus. Okay, so those are my main parts so far. So I have a membrane over here, my cell membrane, the plasma membrane, whatever it is you want to call it. We talked about that today too. It's my phospholipid bilayer. Somewhere like cheap, but plasma membrane. Here's my nucleus. Right there, that's the control center of the cell. It tells it what to do, when to do it, how to dress, what to wear, look at the kid's bed. It's like a wife, isn't it? Alright, that's the control center. And then I have this stuff called cytoplasm. It's everything else that's not the nucleus or the plasma membrane. So it's all the stuff in between here and here. Okay, so it includes cytosol. What is cytosol? Intracellular fluid. It's the same thing. So my cytosol is my intracellular fluid. It's the water stuff. Okay. What about organelles? Organelles are tiny organs. So chocolate water heart. Things like mitochondria. That's an organelle. My little ribosomes. That's an organelle. My smooth and rough endoplasmic reticulum. That whole list from lab, those 14 things, those are organelles. So if I take both of those together, the water, the cytosol, and the organelles, it makes the cytoplasm. Pretty easy? Okay, so cytoplasm is the water and those chunky little particles, like ribosomes and crazy stuff like that. Here's a better picture of the plasma membrane. Again, we have that phospholipid bilayer thing going on for us. And we have stuff stuck inside of there as well. We have things like proteins, called integral proteins and peripheral proteins. What's the difference, do you think? Yeah, think about the word peripheral and integral.
Peripheral is the one on the surface that doesn't penetrate all the way through.
Exactly, good job, right. So if something's on the periphery, it's like on the surface, right? So it doesn't penetrate into the cell membrane. So that would be a peripheral protein. Don't forget, we have 2 layers, right? So here's my first layer. Here's my second layer. So it doesn't matter if it's on the inside or the outside. As long as it doesn't penetrate into it, it's a peripheral protein. What about an integral protein then? Yeah, it sticks into the cell membrane itself. So it will penetrate into, or it'll go all the way across from one side to the other. Those are my integral proteins. So those are 2 categories, peripheral and integral. And we have other stuff on here as well. Glycolipids, glycoprotein, we have ion channels, we have markers, and all that crazy stuff as well. So we're going to do all that and talk about the stuff. That's a little snapshot overview of that one. Okay, same stuff we just said. That my phospholipid bilayer, this says lipid bilayer, but it's phospholipid bilayer, okay? Made up of phospholipids, yep, I can see those. Made up of cholesterol, I saw that too. Glycolipids, yep, check, got that one done. More stuff, right? See here? Integral proteins, peripheral proteins, we got that done too. So maybe just jot down and know how those are arranged, right? So integral proteins will integrate or penetrate into or all the way across that cell membrane, whereas the peripheral proteins are found on the surface, whether on the outer surface or the inner surface, either way. But they never penetrate into the cell membrane itself. So they're called peripheral proteins. I know we just went really fast. You guys are okay? So okay. All right, so integral and peripheral proteins. 5 minutes left. Okay. Alrighty, now here are some of the functions of those proteins. The integral or peripheral proteins, they have a function to them. And you can probably figure out a few of these, right? An ion channel. We talked about ions before, right? We said an ion was an atom that's either gained or lost an electron, and therefore there's some polarity to them. And as we work our way through, we're going to find out that a typical cell is negative on the inside and positive on the outside. This is going to work out that way for us. So my cell has some polarity to it. What if I have a negatively charged ion? Would it be easier to go into the cell or harder to go into the cell, do you think? Harder. Yeah, those opposites will attract, but like will repel. So probably not so easy to do it this way. How about a positive ion? Probably gets sucked in, right? It's going to get sort of pushed away. So I can actually use ion channels to help me transport these ions, sort of like sneak them in sort of thing. So I can sort of like bypass this polarity thing that's going on for us. So I can use ion channels to help out there. So that's my first type of protein, is an ion channel. And they're specific. I have one for sodium. I have another ion channel that's specific for sodium. I have another one that's used for like chlorine and things like that. So they're very specific in the ion that's going to be transported across the cell membrane. But I can either go in or out, right? It depends on which way we're trying to move those ions. So ion channel is my first one. What about a transporter protein? It sounds like a transport step, right? Yeah. Well, sometimes things can be passed right through the cell membrane, like oxygen and carbon dioxide and water and things like that. Sometimes other things are too big, like a big chunk of something over here, just to go ahead and squeeze that through the cell membrane. But I can use a protein, and my little substance will bind to my little protein over here, and then squeeze it through to the other side. So that can be my little transporter protein, right? Some sort of a substance will bind to one side, it'll change shape, and push it through to the other side. So again, it helps out if something has some polarity to it, or it's just too big, things like that. What about a receptor protein? Yeah, well, this cell has to know what to do. And who tells the cell what to do all the time? Or how about we go with like your nervous system and the endocrine system, which all generate from your brain, like signals from your brain, tells your heart when to contract. It really controls the whole body, your brain. So how do I send a message from your little brain down to your cell? A couple ways I can do that, right? I can do it through a neuron, right? I do it this way. Or I can do it by the release of chemicals from another gland. And those chemicals are called hormones. Yeah, so I can do it with hormones, chemically, or I can do it electrically with the nervous system. Okay. So actually, a lot of times it's called your neuroendocrine system, what regulates the body. So anyway, so if I'm going to do it the hormone way, using chemicals, I have to have some way of a chemical to bind to my cell to tell it what to do. So I have to have these little receptors that are on there. So it says here ligand. A ligand is nothing more than a chemical messenger or a chemical that's used to send a signal. So a ligand and a chemical and a hormone is all like the same thing for us at this point. Because my little chemical has to bind. These are binding site, little receptor site. All good? All right, so maybe we'll stop here maybe, I guess, maybe. Maybe you can stop. So up through that slide here, ion channel transport receptor, that'll be your first test on Thursday. Tomorrow we'll do a quiz over chapter 1 only. So we all good?
Then we'll do like a little review for the whole class.
Well, the review of the whole text, in chapter 1, you sort of like get it real fast. And
Yeah.
not much there, so tomorrow we'll try to do that. But